A desperate request for leftovers. The billionaire froze, but what happened next would unravel a shocking past and redefine everything he knew about kindness, leading to an incredible. The bustling diner hummed with afternoon chatter, the scent of coffee and fried food hanging heavy in the air. Mr. Sterling, a man whose wealth was as vast as his solitude, sat lost in thought, a perfectly seared steak cooling untouched before him. His mind, miles away from the clatter of plates and hushed conversations, was abruptly pulled back by an unexpected presence. A tiny shadow, no more than 9 years old, stood by his table. Her face, framed by a worn hoodie, was smudged with the grime of the streets, her eyes holding a guarded wariness, not a plea. "Could I have your leftovers?" she whispered, her voice barely audible over the diner's din. Before Mr. Sterling could even process her heartbreaking question, a sharp command pierced the air. "Hey, out!" A security guard, brusque and unyielding, seized the girl, pulling her away as if she were nothing more than an annoyance. Miss Sterling's mouth fell open, but no words came. He watched, paralyzed, as her small, scuffed shoes squeaked on the floor, the sound fading into the hiss of the coffee machine. The image of her startled flinch, her small body being roughly ushered out, branded itself onto his soul, a deep, persistent ache he couldn't dislodge. The rest of his day blurred into an indistinguishable haze. Meetings, calls, even his driver's query, "Where to next, sir?" elicited only a vague response. That small voice, that desperate question, replayed endlessly in his mind, a broken record of regret. He had, of course, contributed to countless charities, written hefty checks, and sponsored causes. But this was different. This had a face, a pair of weary, watchful eyes, that now haunted his every thought. As twilight painted the city in hues of orange and purple, a strange compulsion led him back to the diner. What did he expect to find? Nothing. Yet he instructed his driver to pull over. The diner was the same ambient noise, but the girl was gone. Stepping back outside, his gaze drifted to a dark alleyway beside the building. A rusted dumpster, its lid ajar, stood like a silent sentinel. Then a flicker of movement. There she was, crouched low, her hoodie obscuring her face, carefully extracting a crushed paper bag. She unwrapped a cold burger as if it were the most precious treasure, taking slow, deliberate bites, as if eating too quickly might make it vanish. Mr. Sterling stood motionless in the shadows, the air thick with the smell of exhaust and forgotten food. A wave of profound shame washed over him, a stark contrast to the comfortable existence he had returned to just hours before. The next morning he was back, same booth, same diner, but his eyes weren't on the menu, they were glued to the window. She didn't appear that day, nor the next. By the fourth day, he abandoned the pretense of coffee. He waited outside, leaning against a lamppost, a small paper bag clutched in his hand, holding two warm, untouched sandwiches. When she finally emerged, it wasn't from the street, but from the alley's murky depths. The same hoodie, the same guarded eyes. She froze when she saw him. He didn't approach, didn't push the bag at her. Instead, he simply placed it on the edge of the dumpster lid, a quiet offering for a cautious creature. "Fresh," he murmured, almost to himself, then turned and walked away. The following day, the bag was gone. So he left another, and another. Sometimes, from a distance, he would catch her watching him leave, waiting until he was blocks away before cautiously retrieving her meal. He never asked questions, never reached out. He understood that trust wasn't built with empty words, but with consistent, quiet proof, day after day, until she no longer expected him to disappear. The rain was a gentle whisper on the city streets the day she finally spoke. He sat on the curb opposite the diner, coffee cooling in his hands, when she appeared. No bag waiting for her this time. He simply wanted to be present. She stopped a few feet away, her voice small yet sharper than he remembered. "Why do you keep doing this?" she asked, her gaze fixed on him. He truly looked at her then, rain beating on her lashes, the damp fabric clinging to her slender frame. "Because no one should have to eat from a dumpster," he replied, his voice soft but firm. She didn't respond immediately. Then, like a dam breaking, words began to pour out, a torrent of pain and betrayal. A woman with a dazzling smile and expensive camera had once promised her family help when her parents fell ill. She'd spun their story online, raising an astonishing $150,000. But the help never came. No medicine, no food, just a deafening silence until her parents were gone, leaving her with nothing but a phone full of strangers demanding gratitude. "That's why I don't trust people," she choked out, turning away, wiping her tear-streaked cheek with her sleeve. He didn't try to argue or offer empty platitudes. He simply nodded, slow and heavy, a man who understood far more than he wished he did. After that rainy night, things shifted. Subtly but surely, she still maintained her distance, her guard still up, but she no longer vanished. He continued to show up, sometimes with food, sometimes just with a chair pulled up beside her on the curb. He spoke of mundane things, the weather, the diner's terrible coffee, the street musician's repetitive tunes. She didn't always reply, but she listened. And slowly, tentatively, she began to add her own small observations. A wry joke about the grumpy cook, a soft laugh when a pigeon landed too close to a customer's plate. One afternoon, he brought an old paperback novel, placing it silently beside her. She didn't touch it then, but the next day it was gone. Weeks settled into a quiet, comfortable rhythm. He never pressed for more than she was willing to share. Then, on a crisp morning, she stunned him. "Do you ever think about adopting?" she asked, her voice a fragile blend of casual curiosity and raw terror. He paused, knowing better than to rush. "Only if the person I adopt wants me to," he finally said. She gazed at him for a long moment, her eyes searching his, before a soft whisper escaped her lips. "Maybe I do." The day the adoption papers were signed, Chloe couldn't stop tracing the letters of her new name. It wasn't about the fancy script, it was about being chosen, officially and unconditionally. There was no grand party, no speeches, just a quiet, intimate dinner at the very diner where their paths had first crossed. Her plate was full now, her chair pulled close to his. Weeks later, the news broke. The very same online influencer who had exploited Chloe's family tragedy was arrested, facing charges of fraud, wire theft, and exploitation. The trial would be long, but for the first time, the world wasn't mocking her story. It was demanding justice. That spring, a new building opened on the city's east side, a small, bright orphanage. Its sign proudly bore her chosen name in bold, gleaming letters, the Chloe House. On its first morning, she stood beside Mr. Sterling, watching children rush through the doors with wide-eyed wonder and boisterous laughter. She asked for leftovers, he mused, glancing at her, but he knew profoundly what she truly needed was a place to belong. Sometimes, a single act of selfless kindness can indeed rewrite an entire life. What an incredible journey, wouldn't you agree?